Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show on this Monday, August 8th, 2016. Of course, tomorrow is the day that people in Wisconsin can declare their independence from the globalists. And, of course, we had Paul Nehlen on earlier on the show with Alex Jones. Very important interview. You know, when I was listening to it, I had not heard him speak. I've read a lot of what he's written, and I agreed with his positions on the issues. But the guy is really articulate. He's well-informed. He's totally awake. I certainly hope that this is going to be an election that sends a message to the globalists, to Washington. We're going to talk about Paul Ryan, and let's talk about that first, you know, because we've got several different articles here about Paul Ryan. People who are in Wisconsin need to understand, and if you're there, make sure that your neighbors understand this is an open primary. If you are a Democrat, if you are an independent, you can still send a message to the globalists. You can throw out Paul Ryan. He isn't somebody that we need, okay? Republicans and Democrats alike should be fed up with this guy. He has lied to his Republican constituents. He has told them repeatedly that he's going to do one thing and then do something completely different. That's been the way that he has run his political career from the very beginning. But a lot of people who watched him up close knew exactly who this guy was. You know, Paul Ryan does not want to even mention the name of his opponent, Paul Nehlen. He doesn't want to debate him. He doesn't run any commercials against him. You know, when Eric Cantor did that, he lost. He was the number 2 guy in the Republican House, and he lost his seat against a challenger for the same reasons, because he had been somebody who had been with the Democrats. You know, we see all these articles coming up all the time about this low-level functionary or this guy who was assistant to the assistant to the assistant of Jeb Bush's campaign is now going to support Hillary Clinton. We knew that. Okay, we knew the guys at the top of the Republican Party were indistinguishable from the people at the top of the Democrat Party. We understood that. We know there's one party. It's the globalist bankers party, okay? And they've been having a big party at our expense. So we knew that. That isn't anything new. And yet we see all the mainstream media, we see the AP, Reuters, every time somebody who has even a most tangential connection to the Republican Party says that they're going to say, you know, the GOP dog catcher in some rural area says, oh, I'm going to vote for Hillary instead of Donald Trump. It's a top story at The Hill, at Politico, at Reuters, okay? They all put this up, the Wall Street Journal, and the whole mainstream media will focus on that. But when you've got somebody who comes out, like Tom Tancredo, somebody who himself who has run for president, a brief campaign, but he's a long-term congressman, and he has taken the trip to Wisconsin to tell people about Paul Ryan. And he says, Paul Ryan has enabled illegal immigration since the day he walked into Congress. That's a headline on Breitbart. He says, I've known Paul Ryan since the day he walked into Congress, and I assure you he has never, ever, ever been supportive of any of the attempts that have been made to secure our borders or to do anything substantial about the issue of illegal immigration into the country. And as I said last week, Paul Ryan doesn't want people to know that there's somebody running against him. He doesn't want to show that difference, because more than it revealing that he's got an opponent and telling people who his opponent is, if he starts to run ads against his opponent, it's going to highlight the fact that Paul Ryan is against the Republican constituents, and he's with the globalists, and he's with the Chamber of Commerce. This is what Tancredo went on to say. He said, tell your constituents who you are. See, Paul Ryan doesn't want to tell people who Paul Nehlen is. He doesn't want people to know who he is, and that's the key. If you know who Paul Ryan is, Republicans, Democrats, and independents will reject this elitist globalist who works for the bankers. He says, stand up in front of your constituents, Tancredo said to Paul Ryan. Stand up in front of your constituents and say, look, I'm an open borders guy. The Chamber of Commerce believes in it. The Chamber of Commerce wants cheap labor, and I do what the Chamber of Commerce wants. I always have. I'm an establishment guy. He said, tell them who you are. Be responsible. Be respectable to them. Don't lie to them anymore, okay? He said, tell voters I'm for the TPP, even though, yeah, most of my constituents are going to get hurt by it, but the Chamber of Commerce wants that. He said, stand up, Paul. Tell them the truth. Paul Ryan, okay? He informed reporters they came to Wisconsin in order to throw the BS flag on Ryan's recent campaign that tried to misrepresent his record on immigration. So that's where we are. It's coming up tomorrow. And, of course, when we look at what's going on with immigration, there was a story via Drudge Report. It was a Daily Caller talking about how in Virginia, They're bringing in, of course, Kerry wanted to have this goal. He was bragging the last day of Ramadan to some Muslims that he was dining with on Ramadan. He said, we're going to bring in 6 times the number of people that we did last year from Syria. Okay? And they're bringing them in. They're bringing some of them into Virginia. But guess where they're putting them? They're not putting them in their backyard. Okay? They're not putting them in the Washington, D.C. area. No. They're going to stick 91% of them out in the rural areas, the places where there's low income, the places where there's already higher poverty rates and no jobs, and the places where they have lower populations. Because, folks, let's understand what's going on here. This is, as the German writer I pointed out last week said about Angela Merkel, this is the great people replacement. They want to replace the indigenous people in this country, and that's whether you are black, white, Hispanic, or whatever. If you're an American who's been here, if you buy into the American ideals, they want to replace you with fresh new people that are an open slate that they can make their voters. You know, it was interesting when we're talking about Angela Merkel and the pushback against her. There was an interesting quote that I'd never seen before. Alex was reading a lot of quotes in the last segment about what the elites have been up to. There was, in 1953, Bertolt Brecht was a communist. And, okay, occasionally communists say some really amazing things. Like when they say, power comes out of the barrel of a gun, you know, and I'm going to control the guns, okay? Bertolt Brecht was looking at what happened in Eastern Germany in 1953. Of course, that was when we had the Iron Curtain. For those millennials who who've gone to public school, there was something called the Iron Curtain, where they split Germany down the middle. And on the communist side, on the East German side, it was supposed to be a worker's paradise. And yet, guess what? They wanted a higher minimum wage. Does that sound familiar? That was a key thing. They had a massive demonstration saying they wanted higher minimum wages from their communist masters, because they always make themselves elitists, don't they? You know, when communism happens, it isn't, you know, from each according to his ability to each according to his need. That doesn't work that way. You have a few elitists that get in charge, and they get everything, just as we see with Kim Jong-un and the others. Well, what was happening in Eastern Germany, they had a massive demonstration wanting higher wages. They brutally repressed that, a lot of militarized brutality against those demonstrators. So Bertolt Brecht became momentarily disillusioned with communism and its practical application. And he said, well, you know, we'd like to, many people want to dissolve the government when it doesn't suit the people, but the government has decided that it's easier to dissolve the people and to elect another. That's what's happening right now. See, the Republicans and the Democrats have decided that you're not going to mess with them in Congress. For the most part, they're going to do whatever they can to rig the election. They're going to get big bucks from their patrons to do whatever they want. And they think that it is easier, and this is going to be a referendum tomorrow to see which is going to be easier. Is it going to be easier for us to dissolve this Congress that has been taken over by the elites that works against our interests? Or is this Congress going to dissolve the people with open borders? Are they going to replace us with people who will do as they are told? That truly, folks, is the referendum that faces us.
Talk show host is Alex Jones. He's a conspiracy theorist.
Radio talk show host Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Jones is the wildly popular conspiracy theorist.
Radio talk show host and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones.
Deeply, I think, racist.
I just got called racist by MSNBC.
I don't want that man to have a gun.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
The Alex Jones Show. Watch the free stream live at Infowars.com/show.
Thousands of years ago, there was a basic form of chivalry. Our ancestors would hear the drums of war, giving the warriors of the tribe a chance to organize and prepare a defense. 60 years ago, when foreign air forces were approaching filled with bombs, they had drums of their own air raid sirens. But in the 21st century, there are silent weapons for quiet war. Pathogens added to the food and water, and to the lining of plastics that destroy our vitality, turn off our hormones, and accelerate our journey towards death. I personally counter this onslaught with Anthroplex. Anthroplex is designed with known organic concentrated herbs to create the basic foundation to normal metabolic activity inside the human body. Discover why Anthroplex is turning so many heads today. It's time for us to take our bodies back into our own hands, and it starts at InfoWarsLife.com with Anthroplex.